Again, open your cameras. Okay. So today we'll start my new section 3.3. And in this section, Shabab, we will talk about dividing polynomials. And if you remember in chapter P, we took how to add polynomials and how to subtract polynomials, and also we took how to multiply polynomials. But we didn't talk about the division. So today we will learn how to divide polynomials using two methods. The first method that we'll use is the long division of polynomials. Then the second method is the synthetic division. And at the end, we will talk about the remainder theorem. Does anyone know the meaning of remainder in Arabic?
الباقي.
Al-Baqi. Thank you very much. So let's start, Shabab, by this small introduction from the elementary stage. If we want to divide 38 by 7, of course the answer is 5. 5 times 7 is 35. Then if we subtract, the answer is what? 3. Now let's introduce some of the names. This 38 here, we call it the dividend. The 7, we call it the divisor. What do you call this divisor in Arabic, if you remember? No answer. This 5 here, we call it the quotient. In Arabic, we call this the ناتج القسم. And what about the 3? This 3 here, we call it the remainder. Remainder in Arabic means al-baqi. So just you need to get used to these names. Now, a question. Can I multiply everything by the LCD, which is 7 here? If I multiply by the LCD, what do I get? Can I say that 38 will be equal to 5 multiplied by 7 plus 3? Of course, the answer is yes also. Now we will do almost the same thing, but with polynomials. I will skip these and go to this example. Is it this one? Just give me 1 minute to check the question. We are going to 3.1 here, 3.3. Yes, this is what are we going to do. Minus 150 over content library. I'll bring the question from here. Copy and we paste it. I'll delete this one. Yeah, let's solve this one together now. What does it say? Use the long division to divide. Now, first of all, Shabab, the first thing we should do is to draw the division sign. This is the division sign. Then I have to write the dividend inside, which is 3x to power 3 minus 2x squared. If you look at the powers, Shabab, do we have a missing power here?
You mean x?
If we have anything missing, if we have anything that is missing, leave it blank. Give a space for that. Make a space for it. Maybe it will help us in not making any mistakes. Then I will put the divisor outside. Now, please pay attention for the steps. The first step that we'll do is the following, Shabab. Divide the leading term with the leading term. Just term by term. 3x to power 3 divided by x The answer is what?
3x.
3x squared. Then the next step is to multiply this answer by the divisor, all the divisor. So we have what then? 3x to the power 3 minus 3x squared times -4 is 12x squared. After that, we need to subtract. And if we want to subtract, it means change the signs of the last line. Of course, now we can cancel 3x squared to the power 3 with 3x to the power 3. Add the next two terms. We have 10x squared minus, of course, 150. Now the next step is again to divide the leading term by the leading term. If I divide these red terms, 10x squared divided by x
10x.
is 10x. Now again I will multiply the 10x by both of these, the terms of the divisor. And the answer will become what now? 10x times x is 10x squared, and 10x times -4 is -40x. Look, where did I put -40x, Shabab? Beneath the blank term. Of course, now we need to subtract. Subtract means we have to change the signs. We can cancel now these, and what remains? 40x minus 150. One more time, I will take the leading term and divide it by the leading term. 40x divided by x is 40. Now I will multiply 40 by the divisor. 40 times x is 40x, and 40 times -4 is -160. Next step is to subtract, which means changing the signs. Now we can cancel 40x with 40x, and the -150 plus 160 is 10. Now, what's the degree of this 10, ya shabab?
0.
Degree is 0. What's the degree of the divisor?
1.
Now, if I ask, is the degree of the remainder less than the degree of the divisor?
Yes.
If yes, we stop our division. So this is called the remainder now, the remainder. Again, I will repeat, Shabab. If the degree of the remainder is less than the degree of the divisor, we stop our division. This means we have finished the division. Now we can do one last step here, is to write it in this form that we did in the numbers. Do you remember how did we write 38/7? We write the quotient, which is 5, plus the remainder, which is 3, over the divisor, which is 7. I will do the same thing here. So I will say that 3x to the power 3 minus 2x squared minus 150 divided by x minus 4 is equal to what now? The quotient, which is 3x squared plus 10x plus 40, which is this thing, plus what?
10 over x.
The remainder, which is 10, over the divisor, which is x minus 4. If you have a question about the long division, raise your hand. Ahmed Abdel Khaliq.
Yes, Doctor, why we change the sign?
Change the sign means subtract. Remember when we started the division of real numbers here? When I divided 38 by 7, the answer was 5. If I multiply 5 by 7, it's 35. What do I do here? Look at the red circle here. I'm subtracting, and subtract means change the signs. So I'm just using the same method as we did in the numbers. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Type. Let's take one more example, which is this one. This time I will divide these. Again, the first thing we should do is to write the division sign. And now inside I will write the quotient, which is 12x to the power 3 plus 11x squared plus 5x minus 8. We will divide by what now?
3x plus
By 3x plus 2. Do we have any missing term this time?
no.
The answer is no. So I'm just going to write them without spaces. Now what should I do? I have to divide now the leading term by the leading term. If I divide these, Shabab, what do I get? 12x to the power 3 divided by 3x.
4x power 2.
It's 4x squared. Now the next step is to multiply 4x squared by these two. What do we get if I do that? 12x to the power 3 and 4x squared times 2 is 8x squared. Now what should I do next? I have to subtract. Subtract means change the signs. These will cancel now. Now we have 11x squared minus 8x is 3x squared plus 5x minus 8. Now our next step is to do what? Again, divide the leading term by the leading term. So I will divide these now. 3x squared, I will divide it by what? Sorry? 3x squared divided by 3x, how much is that?
X.
X. Now multiply x by these. X times 3x, 3x squared. And x times 2
Plus
is 2x. Now we need to subtract. Again, it means change the signs. 3x squared to 3x squared, they will cancel. 5x minus 2x is 3x minus what now? Now, if I ask Shabab, what's the degree of this last step? The degree is what? Degree is 1. And what's the degree of the divisor?
1.
So should I stop?
No.
The answer is no. When do I stop? If the degree of the remainder is less than the degree of the divisor. So let's divide these now, Shabab. How much is 3x divided by 3x? I think it's 1. Multiply now. 1 by 3x is 3x. And 1 times 2 is 2. Our last step here is to change the signs. 3x minus 3x, they will cancel. And negative 8 minus 2 is negative 10. This negative 10, again, what do we call it? The remainder. Now, what's the degree of this negative 10?
0.
I think the degree is 0. So should we stop right now or not?
Yes.
So now I will just write the final step. We will say 12x to the power 3 plus 11x squared plus 5x minus 8 is equal to what? What's our quotient now? Which is this thing, huh? We just write it here. So we have what? 4x squared plus x plus 1. And what's the remainder?
Negative 10 over 3.
Negative 10
3
over 3x plus 2. And we are done. This method of dividing, we call it the long division. If you have a question, raise your hand again. Type. If you don't, I want you now to start dividing this one. I will ask you to do it step by step. So first of all, we will just write the division sign. Now use your pen and paper and start writing and solving, of course. If we have any missing term, we said we will replace it or make a space for that. Now I want each one of you to divide these. I'll give you less than 1 minute. I will start asking now, Sharon. So I expect you to start answering. The student who is not opening his camera, open your camera. طيب Hassan Al-Hurabi, can you give us the division for the first step?
Yes. 8x squared.
Thank you. Abdul Muhsin Ali, can you multiply 8x squared by the divisor?
Will be 8x or 4,
Okay.
16x squared.
And 16x squared, Shabab, we will put it under the term that likes that one. That looks like it. Like terms, we put them under each other. Now, what's the next step, ya Khalid? Khalid Mishal, what should the next step be?
8 x square 2. It is equal 16 square.
The next step is to subtract. Can you give me the subtraction?
Yes, subtract.
What's the answer?
0 here and negative
Continue.
negative 4.
Negative 4x squared
X
plus 7x minus.
18.
Now the next step, Shabab, is to divide the leading by the leading. Yalla. Hussam, give us the division. How much is negative 4x squared divided by x squared?
Yes, minus 4 فوق
Minus. Okay, now we want Ali Hussein to multiply negative 4 by the divisor.
أنا
Ali Hussein الجرش. He's not here. Ali الغريافي. Make the division, ya Ali. Sorry, the multiplication.
Minus 7x minus
We have to
10.
listen to me. We are multiplying negative 4 by the divisor. Just multiply.
Okay, minus 4x squared minus 8.
And we have to put like terms under each other now. Thank you. طيب. Ahmed Al-Harbi, what's our next step?
Yes, it's subtract.
Thank you. Let's subtract. What's the answer then?
It's 7x negative 26.
No, negative 10 you mean, because you have to change the sign.
Yes.
Now, if I ask Ali Saba, what's the degree of the remainder?
1.
What's the degree of the divisor, ya Ali?
2 degree 2.
Now, should we stop or continue?
Yes.
Stop or continue?
Stop.
Why? Because the degree of the divisor
Less
is
than.
more than the remainder. Type. So the last thing we should write is what the final answer now. We will say 8x to power 4 plus 12x squared plus 7x minus 18 divided by x squared plus 2. And the answer is what? 8x squared minus 4. And this one we call it the quotient. Plus what? 7x minus 10 divided by x squared plus 2. Again, raise your hand if you have a question. Right. This method, again, we name it the long division. Now we will introduce another method called the synthetic division. The synthetic division, you took it in the high school and used to call it in Arabic القسمة التركيبية. Pay attention now, how will I divide the shabab? Again, I will draw the division sign. Now, look at these coefficients of the dividend. Those coefficients, we will put them inside the division sign. So we'll have to write 3, -2, and if we have any missing term, we will replace it with the coefficient to be 0. And -150. So why did I put this 0, Shabbat? The red 0, why did I write it? It's the coefficient of what?
X.
Because
X power 0.
It's the
Power
coefficient of
1.
x.
Sorry.
Yes.
Now, this x minus 4, what do we call it, Shabab? X minus 4, we call it what?
4.
The divisor. Now we need to find the 0 of the divisor.
4.
What's the 0 of the divisor? This 4. I will just put it here, 4. So I'm just going to divide by 4 now. Pay attention, please. Now, how to use the synthetic division? The first number here, I will just write it as it is. Then my next step is to multiply 4 times 3 is 12. I'll put it under the -2. Then we will add -2 plus 12 is 10. Next step is to multiply 4 by 10
40.
is 40. Then we add 0 plus 40 is 40. Then next step, multiply 4 by 40. It's 160. Add.
Yeah.
The answer is
10.
10. Now we are done. This last number here, we say this is the
Reminder.
remainder, not reminder, remainder. The 40 is the constant. This 10 is the coefficient of x, and the 3 is the coefficient of x squared. So this thing here is our quotient. So how do I write my answer? I will say 3x to power 3 minus 2x squared minus 150 divided by x minus 4 is equal to what? What was the quotient?
3x squared
This was 3x squared plus 10x plus 40. Then I will say plus the remainder, which is 10 divided by x minus 4. And this method, again, we call it the synthetic division. Now, this exact example, Shabab, we did it earlier using the long division. Let me show you that one here. We did it here, which was the first example. And if you compare the answers here and there, what's the quotient here and what's the remainder? Compare the quotient and remainder in this example with the quotient and remainder in this one.
They are the same.
The same. But in your opinion, Shabab, which method is easier to divide with or to use? The long division or the synthetic?
Synthetic.
I think the synthetic, but now there is a small problem in the synthetic. What's that small problem? Let me write it down for you. Now we have a question. When can we use the synthetic division? And this is a big question. Can I use the synthetic division everywhere? Of course, the answer is no. So when do I divide? We have to satisfy two conditions. What are they? Let me introduce this to you. Let me just make this in a better position. So when can we use the synthetic division? The answer is as follows, Shabab. If the divisor is in the form x minus a. What does that mean? It means that the coefficient of x
should
be 1 and the power of x should be 1. So if the power of x is not 1, which is of course I'm talking about the divisor now. If the power of the divisor or the degree of the divisor is not 1, we cannot use the synthetic division. We have to go back and use the long division. And also the coefficient of x should be what, Shabab? Should be 1. If it's not 1, we cannot use the synthetic. Of course, we can make a trick for that. We can divide everything in the divisor and the dividend by the coefficient of x of the divisor. Now, can I use the synthetic division in this next example?
Yes.
Yes.
Why yes? Because the coefficient of x in the divisor is 1 and the power is what? Now I want each one of you to start dividing and use the synthetic. I will just write the options, which are 4, negative 15, 11, and negative 10. We'll divide that by what? What's the 0 for the divisor this time? Again, this 3 is what, Shabab? The 0 of divisor. The first number, you just write it as it is. Multiply these and put your answer under negative 15. Ali Jarash, this is the second time to call you. Are you there?
Doctor, I have question, Doctor.
Wait a minute, please. Ali Jarash. طيب, Ali Jarash, you are absent today. Yes, Hassan.
Okay, Doctor. Minus 3, Doctor. No, Doctor. 3.
It's the 0 of the divisor, I said. What does that mean? We will say x minus 3 is equal to 0. This is the meaning of 0. If you solve this, how much is x?
Okay. Thank you.
The 0 of the divisor.
Okay.
Samir, give us the first number. What should I write under 15?
12.
12. Taqi, give us the next number.
Sorry, teacher. The answer will be negative 3.
Negative 3. Abdulaziz Al-Amri, the next number.
Minus 9.
Thank you. Kamal, the next number. Raise your voice. Yes, sir, the next number.
6.
Okay, Nasser Lefhaid, the next number.
4.
Negative 4, you mean? Now this negative 4, we call it the remainder. The 2 is the constant. Negative 3 is the quotient of x, and 4 is the quotient of x squared. So this or these numbers here represents the quotient or the coefficients of the quotient. So the final answer would be like this, Shaba. We'll say 4x to the power 3 minus 15x squared plus 11x minus 10 all over x minus 3 is equal to what now? 4x squared minus 3x plus 2. And this thing is what? Is the quotient. Plus what?
-4.
-4, which is the remainder, divided by x minus 3, which is the divisor. If you have a question again, raise your hand. Yes, Hassan, still, this is a new raising or the old one?
يا دكتور كيف اجت 12 وماينس 9 و6 كيف اجت دكتور؟
Sorry, again?
فوق الدكتور في الحل 12 and minus 8 6 دكتور كيف اجت دكتور؟
Now, if we multiply these 3 times negative, 3 times 4, how much is that?
آه
3 times 4.
12 يا دكتور تساوي.
We put it here. This is the 12.
Yes.
Then 3 times -3. How much is 3 times -3?
-9.
We put it here. -9. Then 3 times 2, how much is that?
6. Okay.
We put it there. So we multiply these.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Type. Now we will introduce something called remainder theorem. Please pay attention. This is very important. Let me go back to the previous example, which was this one. Now, Shabab, what's the denominator here? Is it x minus 4, the denominator?
Yeah.
Now I will multiply the whole thing by the LCD, which is x minus 4. If I do that, what will I write? I will multiply by the LCD, which is x minus 4. So I will say 3 x to the power 3 minus 2x squared minus 150 is equal to what? X minus 4 multiplied by the quotient, all plus what? Is this correct?
Yes.
I just multiplied by the LCD. I will do the same thing in this example. If I multiply by the LCD, what's the LCD in this example?
X minus 3.
So if I multiply by x minus 3, I will say what? 4x to the power 3 minus 15x squared plus 11x minus 10 is equal to x minus 3 multiplied by the quotient minus 4. Now, why am I doing this? I'm trying to introduce to you a new theorem called the remainder theorem. Let me go back to the thing that we wrote here. Now, do you see that we have a polynomial on the left side or not? Is this a polynomial, Shabab? This thing?
Yes.
I will give it a name now. I will name it as f of x. Now I want to find f of 4. How can I find f of 4? I need to substitute this 4 replacing every x. Can I put 4 here instead of this one?
Yes.
If I replace x by 4, what will I get?
0.
0.
4 minus 4 multiplied by, and what's the final answer if I do that?
10.
0 multiplied by anything plus 10 is what?
10.
0.
This 10 here, remember what we called the 10? This is the remainder or not?
Yes.
And this 4 is what is the 0? of the divisor. Now let's see if this is the same case in the second one. In this example here, can I give this a name as f of x again? Because it's a polynomial. Now what's the 0 of the divisor in this case? 3. If I substitute a 3, what will I get?
1, 4. Get 4.
Put 3 here, Shabab. What will happen?
Will be 0.
0.
So we have 3 minus 3. 0 times anything is 0. Minus 4, the answer is what?
Minus. Negative.
And this negative 4 again is what? This negative 4 is the remainder or not? Look at the remainder, this thing here. Is it the same as that one?
Yes.
So this is what now? The
Remainder.
remainder. And the 3, what do we call it? 0 of divisor. So can I say a rule now that f of the 0 of the divisor is equal to the remainder? This is our next theorem, which is this thing. Let's read it. What does it say? Remainder theorem. If the polynomial f of x is divided by x minus k, then the remainder equal what? F of k. We can write it in a different way. We say the remainder of dividing f of x by x minus k is equal to f of k. Again, if I ask, what's this k, Shabab? It's what? The 0 of the divisor. This is called the remainder theorem. Let's take some examples to understand this better. Read this one. What does it say? Let f of x equals to this value. Use the remainder theorem to find what? F of 4. Now, earlier, I will just go to method 1 now. Method 1. He's asking me to find what, Shabab? F of 4. But before this theorem, we used to substitute 4 to find the answer. So can I substitute 4 here, Shabab? But as you can see, how much is 4 to power 4?
256.
So we have here what we have, large numbers. And it's hard to calculate. So that's why we will introduce the second method. How can I find f of 4 now? We will say f of 4 is equal to what? We will use the remainder theorem now. F of 4 is equal to the remainder of dividing f of x by x minus 4. So now I want each one of you to start dividing. We will divide by what now? By 4. So put the synthetic division and start dividing each other. What are the coefficients? We have -3. We have 15. Do we have any missing term here in the f of x?
Yes, x power 2.
If we have any missing term, Shabab, we have to replace it with 0, and we'll divide by 4. Nail, start dividing now. Of course, we are dividing just to reach what? To reach the remainder, which is this thing that we need. I want you to find the remainder now. Start dividing. Ali Jarash, are you asleep? Or are you sleeping? Sleeping, Ali? خلاص نوم العوافي. يلا give us all the numbers يا حسام. What's the next number يا حسام؟
minus 12 يا دكتور minus 12.
Continue the next number.
3.
Continue.
كمل دكتور.
حسام continue.
اوكي 12 يا دكتور. minus 12 يا دكتور.
No, it's 12, not minus 12.
اوكي
Continue.
48 يا دكتور. 48.
Next.
minus 2.
Continue.
اوكي minus 8 9. يساوي دكتور 16.
This 17 here, what do we call it now?
The remainder.
Which is f of 4. So we'll say f of 4 is equal to what now? f of 4 is what يا شباب? Is 17. This is the remainder theorem. So as you can see, we have two methods to find f of 4. Either by direct substitution or by the the synthetic division. In this example, the synthetic division was easier because the direct substitution gives me large numbers. In a different example, maybe the substitution is easier. Let's take this one. Now I want you to do it in both methods. He says decide whether the given number k is a 0 of f of x. First of all, what does this mean, Shabab? If he says k is a 0 of f of x, what's the meaning of that?
If you substituted it, we will have 0 in the answer.
Thank you very much. This means f of k is, this is his question. Is f of k equal to 0 or not? So we have to find what now, Shabab, in this example, the first one? We have to find f of 2. This is given to me. How can I find f of 2? There are two ways to find f of 2. The first way is by substitution. The second way by the division. I want you to do both methods. Yeah, start. Method 1. Then after that, you need to use the second method, which is the synthetic division. Muhammad Al-Harthi, are you solving?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, go ahead. I see that
No.
you're just sitting.
No, doctor. The answer, I think, negative 14.
Yeah, you have to find it in two ways. Did you find both?
Yes.
You have to use what methods? So now by direct substitution, the answer is what, Shabab? 16 minus 8 minus 18. And how much is the answer here?
Negative 14.
Negative 14. Now let's do the division method. We have 2, 4, 1, 2, 2, 4, and do you see that both answers, these are the same or not?
Yes.
And this is the remainder theorem. This is what the remainder theorem says. So I will say that f of 2 is equal to what now? To negative 14. Now, is this negative 14 equal to 0? Of course, no. So we'll say that 2 is not a 0 of f of x. Any questions? Mahdi.
Yes, doctor. I think not negative, not negative 8. I think negative 12. The
What's that?
first method.
Negative 12 for what? Ah, 3. Yes, yes, you're right. I just wrote it as 2. Thank you very much. So this will be negative 14. Now, Shabab, let's go to the next example. Here he says, is negative 3 a 0 for this? Again, now we have two methods. The first method is by substitution. How much is f of negative 3? Is it easy to find or hard? Hi, Shabab.
Hard.
If it's hard, what should we do? Ah,
We use the division.
we use the division, yeah. Start dividing, Shabab. Of course, we are dividing to find the remainder. This is our goal. Kamal, can you give us the numbers? Can you give us the numbers, Kamal? Start speaking, open your mic. Raise your voice and give me the numbers.
Negative 3.
Continue.
21. 7. Negative 21.
I'll help you with this one, yeah.
Negative 45. 0.
So since this is 0 now, we will say what? F of negative 3 is equal to what now? Is equal to 0. So, and since the answer is 0, we say what? That negative 3 is a 0 of f of x. Thank you, Kamal. Any questions, Shabab? We'll stop here today. Continue next time. Don't leave. Don't leave.